What's up, guys? B Train here. So, today I want to talk about what I've learned, some mistakes I've made from making two SRPG games. I made Grey Heritage Faded Vision and Grey Heritage Noble Duty. And there was a lot of mistakes I made, let's just say that. And I really want to talk about what I've learned, things I could have done better, so that way a lot of the people out there can learn from my mistake. So let's just go ahead and talk about my first game, Grey Heritage Faded Vision. This is my first project, and this is what a lot of indie game developers are still doing. They're still working on their first game project. So let me just talk about the mistakes I've made from making this game. The biggest one for me was better work-life balance. So when I made my first game, I actually had a lot of issues with my work-life balance. I kept working on the game. It was on my brain like every hour, every day. And I felt like it was just unhealthy. Like, I really didn't need to think about my game that much. And looking back on, and like, I do think that comes from a place of like just inexperience, right? Like, you need to put more hours in because you're less experienced. So you kind of like just keep thinking about the project, what can go wrong and stuff like that. And like that built a lot of anxiety. I really wish I spent less time working on the game and just more time just focusing on myself to have a better work life balance because I worked really hard to make my first game. It did take me 16 months to make it, but looking back, that was a very unsustainable 16 months. I could have done way better scheduling to make sure that didn't have happen. So just an example of my work-life balance working on Faded Vision. I worked a part-time job. I was in school full-time. I worked on the game about 4 hours every morning and night, 7 days a week. And like while I was like in school or like work doing my part-time job, my brain was on the game like all the time. So like it wasn't even like an 8 hour shift. It just was like 24/7 shift, you know? And I feel like I didn't need to do all of that. Like, yes, because it's my first game, I probably need to put more time and effort into it to get it done. But looking back on it, I wasted so much like energy and like just so much anxiety and stress and everything just to get the game done. I didn't have to do all that. Another thing I really wish I did better with Fate Vision was I wish I spent less time worrying about marketing. So I spent a long time on Twitter to like try to like post my game and do all this screenshot and stuff and build my following and stuff. It was pointless. Like looking back on it, I wasted too much time scrolling on Twitter. I was wasted too much time like looking what other people are making. I spent a long time on Steam and just looking at what other games are doing and stuff like that. It's a very common saying to like not compare yourself, but I do think on social media it's very hard not to. I wish I spent less time doing that. I thought that was pointless. Like looking back on it, I spent way too much time doing that type of stuff. What I should have done instead was actually just keep playing more video games. Playing video game is how you get ideas, how you get inspiration. Like you learn like tricks you probably didn't think about just playing another game. Like, oh wow, this game did this. I didn't know like this you can do this for visual storytelling, you know? Or like sometime like I'll play a game and I know as a sound design is like very instrumental and I'm like, oh wow, I never really seen a game do this with instruments. You know, like it's stuff like that that's actually have compounding interest because you have a bigger frame of reference of good game like design quality, right? So I wish I played more games. I wish I didn't spend as much time marketing on Twitter or like researching on Steam because during the development of Fate Vision, I actually did not play that much video games and I regret that completely. Another big one. I feel like Fate Vision, I should have done a much better job with the UI UX design overall. Um, I did use a pre-built game engine, SRPG Studio. It's kind of like RPG Maker, but for tactical RPGs. And I feel like I could have done a lot better making a new UI because I noticed that when I played the engine, I thought the UI was very intuitive actually. But once I released it, a lot of people were confused. Like just an example is the default keyboard control is the arrow key and then ZXC. And that's very common in like emulators and stuff like that. But like a lot of people didn't know that. And like that was kind of surprising to me. So I wish I did like more UI work where I showed on the screen like, hey, this is the button you gotta press and stuff like that. Like I was kind of surprised how unintuitive it was for a lot of people. And like for me personally, it was intuitive. That kind of shows that I need to work harder on my UI design in the first place. And that was probably one of the things that hurted my game the most at launch is I probably should have done better UI work. All right, that's enough for Faded Vision. Let's talk about Noble Duty. This game came out 5 months ago, so most of the lesson I'm talking about this is actually a lot more recent. The first thing is I wish I had spent more time studying on asset creation. I spent a lot of money on the game for like contract workers and stuff like that. I wish I studied more about the fundamentals of like sound design or like pixel art or character illustration because as a game director, as a solo game developer, you do have to direct people, right? And you gotta know the fundamentals and stuff like that. I was much more hands off with that type of stuff during the development of Noble Duty. I kind of let contractors do whatever they wanted. And like there's pros to that, right? Like I'm easy to work with. Like I do my best to be a very like agreeable and like a chill boss and stuff like that. But I do wish I spent more time studying asset creation so at least I could direct people more because sometimes something feels a little off and I don't know how to explain it. And that is a big part of communication, right? Another big one, I wish I spent more time on localization somehow. Noble Duty was the game that did not get a Chinese or Japanese localization. Faded Vision did. I wish I spent more time like either working a part-time job and paying it off by myself or finding a publisher or anything like that. If I did that, Noble Duty's launch would have went way more better and I would have been a happier person for doing it because I do feel like having a bigger net like my type of game is kind of meant for JRPG players in the first place. A lot of ages are gonna like that type of game, you know? And I wish I spent more time doing that actually. So this third one is a bit more for Faded Vision and Noble Duty, but I wish I did more YouTube actually. I wish I did more devlogs. So a big reason why I say this is because I kind of wish I had a better resource to look back and see the progress of my games. I really wish I got to see myself 4 years ago, like in a basement somewhere or whatever, like working on Faded Vision because I actually don't have that. And I'm try my best to do more devlogs now because I want to see that in the future. I do wish I have more like resources, journals, or whatever while I was working on Faded Vision and Noble Duty because I just love seeing what I was in the past and like I think that's really important to me to grow as a person, just to see that part of me again. Like I'm a much more different person now, and like I don't fully remember what I was like working on Faded Vision, and that's where a lot of game developers are at right now. They're working on their first game. I wish I got to see more of that. So this is more technical, but I do wish I did not use the voice acting barking, like the voice acting clips during cutscenes. And I wish I just did partial voice acting. I wanted to do more voice acting in cutscenes to make like the emotional scene more powerful and it's voiced and like people can hear it, you know, and I regret not doing that. I think what I did was very budget friendly, but I think my game would have been a much more better quality game if I just spent a little bit more money and just did the partial voice acting in my cutscenes. All right, that's it for me. That's about 4 points for each of the games. I really wish I did all of those things that I mentioned. I'm trying my best to learn from my mistake and do better in my third game. And some of that is doing more devlogs in my third game. Some of that is studying more on asset creation, better work-life balance. Lately, I do feel like I'm doing better in the work-life balance part, but I am always looking for room for improvement. You know, better UI design, work on localization, things like that. I hope you guys learned something from this video, and I will talk to you guys later.